Hey there, it's Adam Schmela with Integrated Consulting and Advisory Solutions. Thanks so much for expressing interest in our Just the Workflows package to help you implement a robust workflow solution into your Redtail CRM database. Let's begin with a demonstration of the system itself within the CRM. But before we get in there, let's just basically summarize what a workflow is. So a workflow system can be summed up pretty much in one sentence. It tells you who's responsible for doing what, when it should be done, and for which client. If you're familiar with workflows, you know that there are a couple of different layers to that system, and today we'll go through a brief demonstration of one of those workflows to show how all the pieces are put together. We begin by showing you that all of our workflows in the database are ordered alphabetically based on the process that they are meant to accomplish in the client service model, such as setting appointments, providing client service, insurance work. We have some new account workflows, obviously, and as well as at the very bottom here, we get into some referral workflows to help introduce your clients to centers of influence and others on your planning team that will help implement things that are maybe outside of your core competency and core service that you provide in your practice. In addition, you'll notice that our descriptions are very robust, and they not only tell the user when they would use this workflow, but they also instruct them on what the target date should be for that workflow, so that when they assign this workflow to a contact record, they get a consistent flow of the due dates for all of the tasks and steps within that workflow. So if we dive into one workflow here, let's take a look at common workflow. Let's look at a client meeting workflow. Inside of each workflow, you'll see that our steps, tasks, and outcomes give the opportunity to document the details as they are accomplished within the workflow. The benefit of writing a workflow system this way is that you'll have time-stamped, compliant notes that will give you and everybody else working on the workflow really the details of what transpired up until that point in the workflow. And being able to have this documented history also serves as a compliance best practice, as these notes cannot be edited or modified by anybody. So let's demonstrate this on a sample client. Let's pull up a sample client here and walk through how this would work. So let's say Harold Davis is, let's say instead of a prospect, he's a client, but let's go ahead and say that Harold calls into the office and asks to have an appointment with the office. So what we're going to do, we see that we already have one in here, but let's kind of demonstrate this starting from scratch. What we would do is we would go in, we would create a new workflow. Now here when I click down, this is a list of all of the templates that are in our database, and this is the list of templates that would show up in your CRM after engaging with us and working with us to get the copy of all of our workflows into your database. So we're going to check, or we're going to create a copy of one of our templates. We're going to create a workflow based off of the client meeting workflow. Now from this point forward, I can customize this workflow to whatever I want. So let's just say, we'll say this is a job change discussion, just something to kind of refresh our memory of what it's going to be. We're going to select an owner. In this case, let's make it Adam. So we get to the target date. We're not sure what the target date should be, but remember earlier I said we're going to give you that kind of cheat sheet in the description of every workflow. Estimated date of the client appointment. Now, if we don't have the client appointment specifically set on the calendar, that's okay. We say it says estimated, and I'll show how this works out here in a little bit. So let's say that Harold calls in and he'd like to come down, or he'd like to come into the office sometime during the last week of August, but he has to check his calendar. He's not sure. So let's guesstimate and say that he wants to come in on August 30th. We'll go ahead and create the workflow. And now what we can do is we can dive into this workflow assigned at the contact level, and we can assign details. Now, again, in your database, part of our job and part of what we would do for you is we would provide additional training videos, and I'll get into that in a little bit here towards the end of this demonstration. But a lot of this would already be set in your database. For example, in your firm, you would have the assigned tos on each one of these tasks would be assigned to the person in your firm automatically that's going to be responsible for doing these tasks over and over. But let's just say that they're assigned to me for this demonstration. So what I'm going to do here, the instructions are to provide detailed meetings and ensure the advisor tasks are assigned to the correct advisor. This is optional. Again, we'll get into that more in our training that we would send to you after your investment in the system. So let's say, okay, now here we have our outcomes. So right, there's 3 components to every workflow. We have our steps, we have tasks within a step, and outcomes. In order for a workflow to work, you have to have all of those 3 be completed. You have to have at least one step, you have to have at least one task within a step, and you need to have at least one outcome in that step in order for the workflow to work. So outcomes are simply the if-then relationship to what happened and what the next step in the process is going to be. So here we can see that we have a couple of different options. Let's say that all the details were provided and it's now the practice manager, PM, the practice manager or assistant's job to set the appointment. But let's say that in the context of the conversation with Harold, instead of maybe him not having his calendar, maybe he did have his calendar, and he was confident that he was going to be able to come in on August 30th. So from this point, what I could do is I could actually skip this step. I could skip, you can see down here behind it, the contact client. I'm actually going to skip this step if I select this outcome because the client appointment is already on the calendar. So I can type in some notes here. So let's say that okay, so what I'm doing just here is I'm just giving the basics of what has already transpired. And the importance of doing this, again, as we'll demonstrate once I complete this step, is to ensure that we have a documented history of what has transpired. A common phrase that I like to say is that if it's not documented, it didn't happen. And we really believe that to be true as it pertains to working on workflows, not only from a compliance standpoint, but just to allow your team to what I call independently collaborate. So that someone else coming in downline in this workflow, maybe it's in meeting prep, maybe it's in meeting follow-up, they'll know what was done and some of the details around this appointment. And this really reduces the need for people to interrupt advisors, interrupt staff, and ask them where they're at in the process. They can get all the notes and get all the information here. But again, that doesn't happen if the information isn't already put in there. So we're going to complete this step. And now what we're going to see is that, again, the workflow is going to bypass this step right here. And it is now set on meeting prep. And we also notice that that went from a 0 to a 1. And now I have my time-stamped, uneditable, compliant note of who did what did we do? Well, we set the appointment. When did we do it? We did it on this time. And for which client? Well, we're assigned here to Harold Davis. And so now what I can do is I can just continue to work through this workflow. And in the spirit of time, I'm not going to complete this entire workflow here, but this is what would happen working the process from this point going forward. We would complete meeting prep due before the client appointment. Obviously, we want to have that done. So we said that the target date was going to be the date of the appointment. That was 8:30. We want to have meeting prep done by 8:25. Now, let's say that Harold calls in and reschedules, and he wants to move it back to the 31st on Friday. If I go ahead and do that, what we'll see happen is that the due dates for these tasks down here automatically advance out one more day to coincide with the due date of when the target date was. So this is where target dates really help coordinate the due dates of tasks pre and post target date, so to ensure that consistent client experience. So you can see the different steps in the workflow here, meets with the advisor, and you'll also notice that if I highlight over this or if I hover over each of our tasks, we do have specific descriptions built out along each task. Again, some of this is going to be customized to your firm, and I'll get into that in a little bit here. But in essence, this is a system, this is a demonstration of one of the workflows, and the theme and flow of the workflow that you're seeing here in the client meeting is the same across the board in all of our workflows. So once the workflow is complete, if I were to advance this down and go all the way, what we would end up seeing is these are all the active workflows that we have in a client record. What I would see once it's completed is I would have the ability to go over and see everything that's been completed. And as you build these workflows out for your clients in the months and years that follow, you're going to have this list grow and grow and grow. So it really gives you the ability to see all of the service and all of the activity that's been done on a client record right within one location. And again, if I click into this, I'm going to be able to still get access to all of those time-stamped, uneditable notes that were completed, who did what, when did they do it, and obviously as we see which client we're doing that from, or we're doing that for. So that's a brief demonstration of the system. Now, what do you quote unquote get? What is the product that we deliver in return for the investment that you're making in both time as well as a monetary commitment to this system? The deliverables for our Just the Workflows package include all 60 plus Redtail workflows that you saw previously, as well as a handful of deliverables, including white labeled mail merge documents, training guides, and a list of categories and other Redtail specific information. We also include other resources that we found useful in delivering a Starbucks-like experience experience on FedEx efficiencies, such as a glossary of terms that we use here in our workflows, a couple of different graphics that show how we work a lead through a client from a marketing standpoint. So we really try and provide a number of ancillary resources that will complement the workflow system that we've created here. In addition, we'll provide you with a series of training videos. They are pre-recorded and they're meant to help you and your team implement this solution into your practice. Now, an important concept to understand here is that we fully understand that unless you ran your office exactly the same way that we ran our firm, there's going to be little nuances and little changes that you will need to make to our workflow system once it's inside your CRM. No system is truly plug and play out of the box, and there's always going to be a certain level of customization that's going to be required on your end from your team. As a practicing advisor myself, though, I've always had really two big challenges to overcome whenever implementing a new piece of software or system. That's the accountability to implement it and the personalized training approach to accomplish that implementation. For those advisors that are looking for that true one-on-one accountability, I would suggest you look at our Essentials solution. The Essentials package that we provide is the same system, the same deliverables that I'm talking about here, but the benefit of the Essentials is that I or someone on my team is going to be with you from an accountability standpoint, a training aspect, for a period of 4 hours from the time of implementation to really help you customize this and be one-on-one with you to ask some of those targeted questions that you and your team may have. So again, if you're interested in learning more about the Essentials package, you can head back to our website, click on the Essentials link, and we'd be happy to get in contact with you there and set up a demonstration. Or you can view the demonstration there, although again, in full transparency, it's the same demonstration. It's the same type of deliverables that we're going over here. The biggest difference, again, is just the customized one-on-one training. So again, I really want to thank you for taking the time to explore implementing our workflow system by investing in the Just a Workflow solution. Again, this system is going to be best served for someone that feels confident around workflows. They know how they work, they know how to modify them, but they really just want to have the biggest benefit of this system, which is the savings of time and not having to invest the tens, if not hundreds of hours from either the advisor or the staff to go ahead and create this system. We give you the plug and play, as I'm fond of saying. We kind of give you the paint by numbers here. It's up to you to pick up the brush and kind of color in the dots and color in the picture to make it look as to how you want it to look inside your system. If you're interested in getting a demonstration, or I should say really kind of playing with 3 of our workflows, I would encourage you to head back to our website and click on our deliverables page. I believe we do have the ability to sign up and get a copy of 3 of our workflows that you would get in PDF form. And then from there, you can go ahead and copy and paste those the PDF instructions into the workflow, and that'll kind of give you an additional taste of how the workflows work as well. We encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel as we periodically put out short best practice videos on how to make the Redtail CRM even more efficient in your practice. And as always, you can always reach out to our office and we'd be happy to answer any questions that way as well. Thank you again so much, and we look forward to the opportunity to serve you well. Enjoy the rest of the day.